Hello folks, and welcome to This Thing with us. It's a weekend warm-up with Will and Lawrence. How are you, mate?
I'm very good. Glad to be here in Imola. It's a beautiful day. We're in the middle of a park, so it's a lush location. What more can we ask for?
It's a stunner, isn't it? Actually, the weather's been beautiful since we arrived here in Italy for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix.
You've been practicing that,
I
haven't
have.
Yeah.
At the Circuit Enzo e Dino Ferrari, which we commonly know as Imola.
As it says there.
Imola. It's wonderful to be back. Did track walk yesterday. What a track. It's just such fever. First time for Formula One since 2006. And you forget just how brilliant this circuit is. Walking down through Acqua Minerale yesterday, sun sort of beating down on it. Cars at full tilt around here, quali spec. It's going to be brilliant. Very excited.
I know that leaving Portugal, the drivers are very excited to come here just because it's the second race in a row. It's an immense driving spectacle for them. They just want to go out and have some fun. And like you just said, they're going to have a lot of fun out here.
It's a different week, a different setup actually to what we've ever had before. There is no driver interviews today on the Thursday. Instead, that's on Friday. Saturday, one extra long practice session for a Saturday anyway. Then quali, then race on Sunday. That's it.
Compressed. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the drivers cope with just 2 days of actual track action. The teams as well, they'll have to digest all that data much quicker. They'll only have 90 minutes of practice on Saturday morning to make any tweaks. Obviously, if they have any problems in that practice session, qualifying's not very far away. So it could be a very difficult weekend if you can't just hit the ground running.
Yeah, and it's an old school circuit, not a lot of runoff. If you make a mistake here, you're in the gravel, you're beached, that's your day done.
That's what Formula One should be about, though, isn't it?
Totally.
Like penalising drivers for making mistakes, because that's what we're here for, to see the best drivers in the world.
Absolutely. There was an F1 Commission meeting on Monday, lots of stuff being talked about with that, particularly in relation to 2021.
Yes, so there's lots of chatter going on as we look to finalise the regulations. One of the key talking points was the calendar.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see how that all shakes out, and once they've all finalised, lots of I's and to dot, T's to cross, I could say at the end.
Easy for you to say.
Well, you say that, I struggled.
But obviously everyone looking towards 2021. These guys already looking to 2021. No more developments on the car. That's it. W11 is in its final form, and they could wrap up the constructors this weekend.
So doesn't that just tell you what a good year Mercedes have had this year, that they can afford to take their foot off the gas, so to speak, with this year's car and put all their focus on next year's car?
Yeah, very similar to what they did last year, and allowed them to get the jump. So it's going to be fascinating to see how that pans out. Lewis going for win number 93. Interesting statistic I saw today. Mercedes-Benz Power has 499 podiums. So if Lewis or Valtteri or one of the Racing Points gets on the podium, that will be their 500th Mercedes-Benz powered podium.
They've been so successful of late that it turns out every weekend there's a record like this that they can be taken, or a new milestone that they can hit. And you've got to say, based on without having seen any track running, they're going to be the favourites once again this weekend. Yeah,
Lewis on 97 poles. They're currently going for the record of taking all pole positions in a season, which would be astonishing.
Phenomenal.
As well.
And Lewis, fast on his way into the century for the pole positions. He's probably going to hit the century of wins as well, obviously not this year, but it's incredible what he's achieving right now, isn't it? It's
amazing. Obviously we have to talk about Valtteri and the defeat, really, last time out in Portugal. The race looked to be his. He was fast all the way through the weekend, and Lewis just absolutely did him in the race.
He did everything right up until the point that he took the lead, and then he just didn't look after the tyres as well as Lewis did. I do think that Valtteri is a very strong driver, and he's been made perhaps not to look so strong by a driver who's the greatest of his generation, if not ever in the sport.
Yeah.
But it's just unfortunate for him that it just always looks like he's always missing out. He hasn't quite got enough.
Talking about not quite having enough, Ferrari, but they are on a better run of form. Those upgrades are really working. Well, they're really working for Charles.
One driver.
I think it's coming towards him because it's suiting his driving style. Counter to that is it's really not suiting Seb's driving style.
And it makes sense for Ferrari to take that direction because Charles is their future.
Absolutely.
And Seb's obviously leaving at the end of the year. It's unfortunate that Seb's career at Ferrari is going to end like this with a car that he struggles with. We saw at Red Bull, when the car doesn't suit him, he struggles. And so it's unfortunate it's working out that way. But I'm impressed that the upgrades have been working because they've struggled with correlation in recent years. And they've had now 3 successive races where they've brought updates and they've worked.
I want to just take a quick look at the constructors.
Check your phone there.
No. Constructors Championship standings. Ferrari 6th in the constructors at the moment, but Charles 5th in the drivers.
I think he's driving better than he's ever driven in Formula 1.
It's incredible.
He's obviously not experiencing the highs of those pole positions that he got last year and those victories, but that doesn't matter. I think that what he's getting out of that car is far better than that car deserves.
Red Bull, let's talk about them while we're down here. There's been news this week. Actually, we've got AlphaTauri next to them as well, so we can talk about that while we're down here. Pierre Gasly back for another year with AlphaTauri. Any thought, any hope he had of returning to Red Bull to take Alex Albon's seat dashed, but he's just doing such a great job with AlphaTauri.
He's going to be delighted that he's got a seat in Formula 1 next year with AlphaTauri, I think, because he's very happy there.
Yep.
It's a family essence team. He's very comfortable. He's getting the most out of the car. In fact, he's getting more out of the car than's really feasible. He wants to improve his standing in the sport, and if he continues doing this year and next year, even if he never goes back to Red Bull, that doesn't mean that another team down this grid, maybe a yellow team, which will become blue, might be interested in him in the future, because he's just driving phenomenally well.
He is 9th, 1 point behind Albon.
Yes.
In a car that's supposed to be nowhere near as good, and I think that speaks volumes of the job that he's doing this season. AlphaTauri themselves my maths is shocking. 16 points behind Ferrari, so they can actually take the fight to Ferrari.
I think
Wouldn't that be astonishing?
that.
Ferrari down in P7 in the constructors,
unbeaten by AlphaTauri, and that's no disrespect to AlphaTauri, but if you look at the budgets and the resource available to both of them, for AlphaTauri to be able to beat Ferrari would be a phenomenal achievement. Yeah,
it would be absolutely huge. Of course, the question mark remains over that second seat at Red Bull. Who will be Max Verstappen's teammate next year? It's looking less and less likely that it's going to be Alex. He has to put in a performance this weekend. We said it last weekend. You know, the team sort of intimating that only 4th was good enough. He had a shocker in Portugal, and there's no other way of looking at it.
I think that when you look at the results by themselves, with that podium way back in Mugello, if he could do just a good weekend like that, our opinions and people's chatter will change immediately. The trouble is, he hasn't really come close to that kind of form since he got it, and now it just looks like that was a high point
flash in the pan.
Exactly. Yeah. He's got to deliver this weekend, because like Christian Horner said, he's got to show them that he can claim that seat and he deserves that seat, because we've got Checo and we've got Nico Hülkenberg waiting in the wings, and I'm still not convinced that Red Bull are going to go out the driver pool, but they've got plenty of options, and that's going to heap the pressure on Alex. Heap it.
I mean, he's been there for a year and a half. I don't know what more Pierre Gasly could have done to have taken that seat. It seems to me, if it's not going to be Gasly in that seat, it's going to be someone other than Alex. I don't know. I can't see it, and it's really sad, because Alex is a quality driver. He's a lovely guy, but it's not working out for him.
No, really nice guy, and I think he, even in the TV pen at the last race, he wasn't actually as down as he has been of late.
Yeah.
Sometimes he really struggled even to look at you, so defeated was he by the form.
Yeah.
He seems to pick up a little bit, and I think he's a confidence driver. So I think if he can feel better about how he feels he's driving, that will have an impact out on track.
Down here at McLaren, there's that really fascinating battle between McLaren, Racing Point, Renault. There's only a couple of points in it between them all, and you know, in the Drivers' Championship between 4th and 11th, 23 points, I think, splitting them all. It's such a tight fight in the midfield.
Renault have been the form team of that midfield bunch of late.
They had a slightly off weekend in Portugal, though.
But an off weekend with 2 points finishes. So what does that say about where they've come, that we're even saying that right now? Whereas these guys have gone in the other direction.
Well, yeah, or have they? Because they could have had a double point score last time out. Unfortunately, Lando came to blows with Lance.
Got too close to Lance.
And then said something rude over the radio, and then apologised for it at the end of the race, and then subsequently, post-race, made some comments, I think, about Lewis, his 92 wins, and he said, you know, well, he's in the best car, so of course he's, you know, getting all the wins, and then apologised. And I don't know, should he be apologising for sort of expressing an opinion? And
I think he's been really hard on himself, to be honest. I think that everyone's entitled to their own opinion. What he said wasn't aggressive, particularly when he was talking about Lance. It wasn't aggressive, it wasn't malicious. He was just merely explaining what he felt had happened out on track. It's just an opinion.
I mean, he did call him up.
But he apologised for that,
yeah.
And I agree that for that he should have apologised. But when he was saying that, when he was speaking specifically about Lance and his actions in the race, I think he's fair enough to have that opinion. He just got essentially ruined his race.
Yeah, interesting. There is going to be a discussion, I'm sure, at a certain point this weekend over drivers apologising for things they've said, or not apologising for things they've said when really they ought to have had a little bit of self-awareness. But we'll see how that one pans out over the weekend, and whether certain drivers a tone.
I'm interested to see how that will play out tomorrow when they start talking to us.
Not holding my breath. Renault, we've had a little chat about them. Obviously, things really coming to them. I can't wait to see how this all pans out in that midfield battle. It's such an exciting time for them. You know, Daniel has really been the architect of pushing them forward, and then it is all starting to come good for them at exactly the right time.
It's such a feel-good story, I think, at Renault, because those guys have had a really tough year since they became a works team again.
Yeah.
Tough few years, and I think that eventually they seem to hit upon a sweet spot, helped in particular by Daniel and the way that he's managed to steer the team. Esteban's had a really strong time as well. He's just had the lion's share of the unreliability. I'm pretty excited for those guys, especially when Fernando gets in the car next year.
Sorry, my focus was just taken by, I think it was about 10 pizzas.
Oh, okay.
I haven't had a pizza yet since we got to Italy. I need one. Racing Point. Let's talk about them. Checo doing an outstanding job, as always. That drive from the back of the field in Portugal was stunning. A little bit naughty with his defence on Pierre.
Yes.
But Lance, there are question marks over Lance at the moment. He had a good sort of first 10 or so races, but just recently it seemed to go off the board. And obviously we know he was away with COVID and everything, and he's come back. But Portugal was a really weird one. He just wasn't, it didn't seem like he was all there.
No, I don't know if that was a little bit of hangover, like you just alluded to, from COVID, and he just wasn't feeling in tip-top shape yet. Or he's just on this run of form where he's finding it hard to get out of that rut. 4 races without scoring now, in a car that really is second, maybe third best sometimes at certain circuits. It's not good enough, really. They need to be bringing home more points. Lance needs to be bringing home more points.
And an interesting thing, you know, that moment with Lando, around the outside, on the curbs, if he'd just taken a wider line through turn 1, he would have been an absolute hero, because he was having a good day up to that point. It wasn't so bad. But twice that weekend, you know, you'd think after the contact with Max, you'd learn 2 into 1 don't go. I have to give space around this corner. It was just, it left me completely befuddled.
Especially as up until that point, his car was much faster in that phase of the Grand Prix than Lando. So even if he had not made that move stick at that corner, he would have passed him at another point. So he's almost thrown away some good points, unfortunately.
And it was nice to see Sergio and Esteban Ocon have that nice battle side by side. And then on social media, they were actually a little bit of a love-in between the two, because there used to be a lot of animosity between those two guys. So great to see. And actually, Esteban said on the post-race show on F1 Live, he said, you know, it's not always been the case that me and Checo have been able to run side by side without coming to blows with one another.
They got too close too often, didn't
they did. But that was really great. It was great to see that, and just showed that actually at that track, if you gave each other space, you could race each other.
Yes, I think that what I loved about Portugal and that Algarve track is that we had great racing. Yeah. It wasn't just the tyres at the beginning. It was the layout afforded itself the ability for drivers to really launch proper overtakes, not always with DRS. And I think that's what Formula One's crying out for. And it was great to see that drivers like Esteban and Checo can race wheel to wheel safely, give each other enough space, but race hard.
Yeah, respectful.
Exactly. Yeah. It was brilliant.
Obviously, that track had recently been resurfaced. Turkey has been as well. It's going to be cold when we get to Istanbul in a couple of weeks' time. Could be a very similar scenario to that which we saw in Portimao. Slippery track, technical, tricky, great spaces for overtaking there.
We should be racing in Europe in the autumn more often, shouldn't we? The cooler temperatures clearly are having an impact on the racing.
I'll let you put that to the F1 Commission. Alfa Romeo will stay Alfa Romeo. They've redone the deal with Sauber to keep naming it Alfa Romeo, and we think driver news may be around the corner.
Yes, it's looking like, Kimi's decided a long time ago that he wants to hang around in Formula One. I think, like Lewis, he wants to get those little details right. He probably doesn't want to do too much media time. He wants to have enough time with his family, so it's probably just getting over the line. It's now looking, as you're hinting, that it's Antonio Giovinazzi in the other seat.
That's a turnaround, isn't it? Because we weren't expecting that a few races ago.
No, there was a lot of chat, obviously, when Mick Schumacher should have driven for Alfa Romeo in FP1 in Germany, that he potentially could land there or at Haas. Or even that seat could go to another Ferrari junior. Antonio Giovinazzi, of course, a Ferrari junior still. But it looks like Ferrari are edging back towards the experience of Giovinazzi.
Yes.
To have him in play, it makes a lot of sense in many ways.
It really does, and that is because we believe that Mick Schumacher is going to be on the way to the Haas F1 team. Plays out well for Haas, plays out well for Ferrari, plays well for an American audience. Get a Schumacher name in the car. That's That's dollar, isn't it?
It is, and that's
big money.
That's what this team have decided that they want to do. They want to take some young drivers with talent and potential, but also some financial backing with them, to hopefully develop the car and push them forward, because the strategy they've taken up until this point hasn't quite worked.
And with that in mind, Nikita Mazepin in line for the other seats. So, bringing a little bit of budget with him as well, which will no doubt help the team.
It's a bold call, because that's two young drivers with no experience of Formula One.
Yeah.
They're going to struggle to develop the car, essentially. So you might actually see that they go for a reserve driver with experience, in the way that Robert Kubica has helped Alfa Romeo quite a lot in terms of trying to
like hold on to Roman or Kevin?
Who knows?
Well, interestingly, Roman and Kevin aren't sugarcoating things anymore, are
they? No, they are not. I mean, to be fair, Roman never really sugarcoated things anyway.
No.
But he's got up another level, hasn't he?
Well, and I think with some right to actually do that. You know, he said they've actually come clean now. They had a suspension problem all year. The rear suspension's been overheating, which has been changing the ride height of the car corner by corner, which is what makes it impossible to set up and impossible to drive.
I feel for that team, because when they have problems, they haven't really got the numbers to be able to get down to work out what's going wrong quick enough. And Formula One's all about speed, and they've struggled. Every time they've had a problem, it's taken them months to get on top of it.
But I still, and I keep going on about it, I still find it astonishing that in their entire history in Formula One, they've never made a change behind the scenes in the engineering department. Why wouldn't you? I just don't guess it.
I do think that the Haas strategy is changing. They're changing tack with the drivers. I think they're going to change their strategy with the engineering side of things. I don't think that we're going to see massive names joining Haas, but I think we are going to see very good, talented people that are further up the pit lane at the moment coming down to Haas.
I mean, listen, it's not to say that Haas don't have a hugely talented bunch of people. They do, but just that little change that can occur when a fresh set of eyes, a fresh set of ideas arrives to maybe reinvigorate a department, just to give it that slight change in direction. That's all that's all the suggestion is. I'm not denigrating them in any way. Just sometimes, and just a new set of eyes might help.
And it's about additions, really. It's about adding people to that group for more ideas, like you said at those meetings, so that you can bounce ideas off and take a different view. Often, if you've stayed the same, we have ideas as baby, and if it's the same people talking about the same ideas, you don't have anything new coming in. It's very hard. You maybe get stuck in a bit of a rut. So I think that Haas bringing in new people would be a great thing.
You can probably feel the paddock tightens towards this end. It's because the river that flows just behind the fence over there, Paddy, means that's just how the paddock has always gone. This was always the end where, I remember when Sauber was Sauber, they had their bus. And a tarpaulin came off the side of the bus, little awning, and that was
old school.
That was their motorhome. Last time we were here, mate, 06. That was still what it was like. It was cracking. And Minardi used to be down this end, and Jordan, and I love this place. It's so fever being back. We'll finish with Williams. A big story coming out of Portugal. George Russell's seat might not be safe. Simon Roberts went into the press conference. Didn't exactly do a great job in sort of quelling the speculation.
I think what Simon was trying to do was quell the speculation. It
didn't work.
Unfortunately, it didn't quite come across in that way. George was quite bullish when he was talking on Sunday night. I've got a seat, he said. He doesn't seem worried. He's spoken to the owners who were in Portugal to have a chat. He seems pretty confident. We'll have to see how this plays out. He's suggesting that the Perez camp were feeding these rumours.
Yes.
Which is spicy.
Isn't it? Yeah. So to explain that, he believes that the Perez camp, who are in negotiations for that Red Bull seat, that they had let this little Williams rumour kind of lit the touch paper on it in order to put pressure on Red Bull to say, well, we might take our money to Williams, we might take our driver to Williams, so let's get this deal done.
Perez needs a seat next year, so I suppose you need to use some tactics to try and get things done. He can't hang around forever, because if he doesn't stick around in Formula 1, he needs to work something else elsewhere. He doesn't want to have a year off, I don't think, whatever happens.
No, and it'd be great to keep him in Formula 1, whether it is down here at Williams or down at Red Bull. The idea of George Russell sitting a year out as well, though, it seems astonishing.
Given the form that he showed this year, particularly in qualifying, it'll be really disappointing to see a driver of his quality have to sit out next year. We've seen it before, of course. Esteban Ocon had a year out. He came back and he's performing strongly at Renault. But I think the way that his career is going, George could do with some consistency and try and build on what he's achieved this year. And a year out is probably not what he wants, and not really what Mercedes want.
No, absolutely. It's going to be a great weekend here in Imola. This track is, as I was saying, it's such a brilliant circuit. I think qualifying is going to be an absolute thrill, right? Just seeing them all absolutely on the limit. I absolutely can't wait.
I'm excited by the race as well. I think that's what's going to be great about this 2-day weekend. It's going to be from start to finish a cracker at an old school European circuit that we love racing at. The drivers love racing at it. The weather looks like it's going to be pretty good, a little bit cooler, so I think that could be challenging for the tyres as well. I can't wait.
And the team's all very, very aware of the fact that without the data, without the time, it will be, to one sense of purposes, a little bit of a roll of the dice.
Yes, but haven't we seen in previous years that without Friday practice, things are normally more exciting for the rest of the race?
Absolutely.
So this is the perfect scenario where we can see if this 2-day weekend works.
Love it. Thanks for tuning in, folks. That is it from me and Lawrence. Obviously, the driver interview's coming along tomorrow, and then the rest of the weekend. It's going to be a cracker. From us, though, from here in Imola. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.